A very good afternoon. Welcome to Africa Today. I am Uduak Daniel. First, let's talk the headlines. And on the headlines, federal government deploys directors in unity schools. Still on the headlines, Burkina Faso expels French ambassador. Also on the headlines, Ethiopian regulator decries journalists' harassment. And on sports, the nation gets the nod to host African. And now the news in detail. Presidency has responded to comments made by former Nigerian leader Olusegun Obasanjo. The senior special assistant to the president, that is the SAN and publicity, Garba Shehu, in a message said former President Obasanjo was always attacking President Buhari because he was envious of the current president's achievements, adding that he keeps doing so out of frustration. Obasanjo, in a New Year message, endorsed the presidential candidate of the Labour Party, that is Peter Obi, and claimed that Nigeria moved from frying pan to fire under President Muhammadu Buhari administration. The presidential spokesman added that President Buhari's achievements have gone beyond Nigeria, while Obasanjo left behind many questions begging for answers. Olusegun Obasanjo served as Nigeria's head of state from 1976 to 1979 and later as president from 1999 to 2007. He had on Sunday, January 1, 2023, endorsed Labour Party's presidential candidate, that is the LP candidate, as his choice for the 2023 general elections. Away from that story, Nigeria Air Force says the major milestone recorded recently is attributed to the successful training of 164 officials and officers and 2,916 airmen and women from January to December 2022. The air officer commanding, that is the AOC Ground Training Command, Enugu Ibikunle Daramola, made this known while addressing officers at the ceremony to mark the base socio-cultural activities.
Under the leadership of the Chief of the Air Staff, one of the major milestones that we have recorded in the command is the successful training of 164 officers and 2,916 airmen and airwomen in our 11 training schools and institutions across the country from January 2022 to date.
The officer commanding ground training attributed the successes.
Fewer than 84 directors under the Federal Ministry of Education have been deployed to unity schools across the country as members of staff. The directors deployed are within salary scale levels 13 to 16. In a circular issued by the Human Rights Management Department of the Ministry of Education, signed by an assistant director in the department, that is H.C. Okezie, signed in the circular, it was noted that the principals and heads of administration of the unity schools will be requested to forward letters of compliance not later than January 20, 2023. It was also addressing principals and heads of administrations who are required to render returns on a level of compliance not later than January 20, 2023. About 3,000 people without source of livelihood dispersed from Durumi International Displaced Persons, internally displaced persons, that is IDP, I beg your pardon, camp, located at Durumi Area 1 in the Federal Capital Territory, that is the FCT Abuja, have cried out for government assistance to ameliorate their plight. Lamenting their plight since the camp was demolished, the IDP said that they and their children now sleep in open spaces as the women make nylon tents and burn firewood to keep their children warm at nights. Woman leader of the camp, Iliatu Ayuba, said some women in the camp cried so much after the demolition.
Nigeria, where we go, they are taking the responsibility for refugees better than us. Okay, find a place like they find a place for the refugees and keep them. Let them keep us around us. And let them do a tent for us so that they say this one is IDP.
The camp leaders.
Chairman of the camp, Aminu Amadu, who narrated their ordeal to newsmen alongside the ActionAid Nigeria to donate relief items to the displaced person, said he was at the venue when he learned that some government officials invaded the camp bulldozers to demolish their structures.
Places.
Okay,
I told me about say making a pack our cloth with anything where you need about things inside our room, our places. They told me say make a pack everything.
Bringing you more stories, the Economic Community of West African States, as is ECOWAS, who earlier gave Mali until January 1st to release 46 Ivorian soldiers, which it claims are mercenaries, as the Malian authorities yet to comprehend. The Malian government had earlier sentenced the soldiers to 20 years imprisonment in the previous week. With the recent development, the regional bloc is yet to react to non-compliance of the Malian authority. On 22nd December, a visit to Bamako by an official Ivorian delegation ended with the signing of a memorandum with the Ivorian Minister of Defense, Tene Birahima Ouattara, brother of the head of state, stressing that the matter was on the way to resolution. It appears that as relations between Mali and Côte d'Ivoire have improved significantly with the memorandum recently signed by the two governments, ECOWAS considers it not the time to create new tensions. According to Ivorian President Alassane Ouattara, the soldiers will soon be returned to Ivorian soil. And now taking you to Burkina Faso and having you know that Burkina Faso's military junta has expelled France's ambassador. Authorities said Monday, amid a surge in anti-French sentiment at a West African country moves to develop closer ties with Russia. Government spokesman Jean-Emmanuel Ouedraogo confirmed to the Association Press that Ambassador Luc Halade was asked to leave, but provided no further details. The French embassy refused to comment. Halade's expulsion comes less than 2 weeks after the United Nations, that is the UN resident and humanitarian coordinator in Burkina Faso, Barbara Manzi, was also declared persona non grata. Burkina Faso has been racked by violence linked to Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State group that has killed thousands and displaced nearly 2 million people. Meanwhile, authorities in Burkina Faso have launched an investigation into the circumstances of the deaths of 28 people when their bodies were found in the northwestern town of Nouna. We'll now move to other parts of Africa after this break. Don't go away. Always a delight to have you back. Welcome to Africa Today on Hills TV. State-funded Ethiopian Media Authority, that is the EMA, has issued a statement calling on the authorities to stop harassing media workers, particularly investigative journalists. It came after the privately owned Ethiopian satellite television, that is the ESAT TV ESAT, said last week that it had received what it called a letter of intimidation from a court in the capital, Addis Ababa. The authority said of late a tendency to stop the work of investigative journalism has been observed. In line with a responsibility bestowed on it to create an enabling environment for the mass media, the Ethiopian Media Authority calls for an end to the harassment of investigative journalists by any quarters. And taking you away from that story, local sources from Kibumba had reported that the withdrawal of the M23 rebels from the Democratic Republic of Congo, that is the DRC, is still not effective. A Tutsi rebellion defeated in 2013, the M23, that is the March 23 movement, has seized a large portion of the territory north of Goma, capital of North Kivu province, in recent months. The most advanced position is Kibumba, 20 kilometers from Goma. On December 23, the rebels and their military leaders met with the commanders of the EAC, that is the East African Community regional force, with a view to withdrawing from the Kibumba groupement, that is group of villages. With the DRC accusing Rwanda of actively supporting the M23 and fighting alongside the group, relations between the two neighbors have been poor. Diplomatic initiatives have been launched to try to resolve the crisis, including the ongoing deployment of the East African Regional Force led by Kenya. And now bringing you the story from the United Nations, and having you know that the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres has expressed his deep sadness over the reported death of at least 34 people in South Africa fuel tanker explosion. The blast in Boksburg, a suburb of the capital Johannesburg, on Christmas Eve severely damaged the roof of the emergency department at the Tambo Memorial Hospital, killing and injuring dozens, while also reportedly destroying houses and cars. Initial reports estimated around 27 deaths, but the figure had risen to 34 by the past weekend, according to regional health authorities. Memorial service for the dead was held last Friday. As news reports said, the victims included nearly a dozen health workers and are almost 24 members of the public, and due to serious injuries caused by burns, the death toll could rise even higher. Children were reportedly among those who perished. Many of the victims were admitted to the hospital's casualty units before having to be evacuated ahead of the roof collapsing. And now let's quickly get on to business and have you know the National Assembly has again allocated 850 million naira for constitutional amendment in the 2023 budget. The National Assembly had recently raised the 2023 budget by 1.3 trillion naira from the 20.5 trillion naira proposed by President Muhammadu Buhari in October 2022. The constitution amendment process had faced several delays at the Parliament, as the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Femi Gbajabiamila, confirmed recently that the passage of the amendment bill in the 9th Assembly had been stalled. The government has over the years allocated about 1 billion naira annually for constitution amendment, which has continued to face challenges since 2011. The 9th Assembly recently lamented that the process of the constitution review was being frustrated by some state governors. The chairman of the Constitution Review Committee, Senator Ohie Nwagege, recently had previously lamented that only 11 states have passed bills. The 11 states that have passed their bills include Abia, Akwa Ibom, Anambra, Delta, Edo, Katsina, Kaduna, Kogi, Lagos, Ogun, and Osun. And now taking you to Tunisia. Tram and bus workers in the Tunisian capital stage a strike over delays in salaries and the lack of an end-of-year bonus, creating traffic jams across Tunis. The strike is the latest in a string of similar actions as Tunisia grapples with an economic crisis that has led to frequent shortages of basic goods from petrol to cooking oil. The North African nation is struggling with debts of more than 100% of gross domestic product and is in negotiations with the International Monetary Fund, that is the IMF, for a nearly $2 billion bailout. Staff from state-owned public transport firm Transu walked out and hundreds demonstrated outside the Prime Minister's office. However, the International Monetary Fund, that is the IMF, has called for the implementation of a string of political sensitive measures, including gradually removing subsidies on basic goods and the restructuring of public firms. These include Transu, as well as monopolies in water, energy, and cereals. Still to come in sports. Don't go away.
Good afternoon and welcome to Sport News on Africa Today. I am Richard Badum. Ahead of the commencement of the new Nigeria Professional Football League season on Sunday, participating clubs are back in training following the Yuletide celebration. The 2022-2023 NPFL season is scheduled to begin on an abridged format after an initial disagreement between the Interim Management Committee, that is IMC, of the NPFL and the club owners. Barring any last-minute kick by any of the parties, everything points to an eventual start of the season on Sunday, as clubs like Lobby Stars of Makurdi are quick to get off the Yuletide mood with their first training sessions of the year on Monday afternoon. 8-time champions Eyimba of Aba also shared videos of the club's first training session of the year on its official Twitter handle with caption, "First session in 2023. Meanwhile, team manager of Sunshine Stars, Seun Betuku, also confirmed to that the club only gave the New Year's Day as break for the players. The league is set to commence on Sunday, January 8, 2023. President of the Nigerian Volleyball Federation, Musa Nimrod, says the federation's aspiration for the year 2023 is to make a meaningful impact at international championships as well as qualify for the Paris 2024 Olympics. Nimrod said Nigerian volleyball could achieve the desired goals if major stakeholders were committed to the same cause. The country's volleyball teams recorded some achievements on the continent last year, but Nimrod believes they can do better in 2023. Ahead of the Paris 2024 Olympic Games, African Shooting Federation has given Tunisia the hosting rights of the continent qualifier. The North African country hosted the 15th edition of the African Shooting Championship for rifle and pistol 10-meter, which took place at the Federal Hall in Beni Khalid in December 2022. The statement read in part, Tunisia is honored to organize the 13th edition of the African Championship for archery with bow and arrow, which will serve as qualifiers for the Olympic Games Paris 2024. Tunisia is known for having one of the best facilities for the shooting event in African continent. And that's your sport news on Africa Today. Back to Udwak Daniel for the rest of the news. I am Richard Badum.
Many thanks, Richard Badung, for that one on sport. And still talking more stories. Gunmen attacked a convoy of a former governor of Imo State, Ikedi Ohakim, and reportedly killed 4 of his police details in the process. The convoy was said to have been attacked at the Oriago in Ehime, Mbano local government area of the state on Monday. Ohakim, who escaped narrowly, had his backup vehicle attacked, leading to the death of the 4 policemen. Reports gathered that Ohakim was with 2 of his children and was returning from a visit when the gunmen struck. Ohakim, who sounded sober, confirmed the attack to newsmen. And that's Africa Today. But before we go, a quick look at our top stories. We told you federal government deploys directors in Unity schools. We also told you Burkina Faso expels French ambassador. We brought to the fore the fact that Ethiopian regulator decries journalists' harassment, and on sports, Tunisia get the nod to host African qualifier. Remember to visit us on YouTube at Hills TV. I am Uduak Daniel. Thank you for watching.